Good morning. Glad you all could be here. My topic is on the changing and dynamic world of test automation resources. How many of you are finding it easy to find a good automation resource to add to your team and have a really easy process to do that, and you're bringing them on as you need them? With the way the technology and the specialization within automation is changing, it's becoming more and more difficult because of how people are focusing on bringing in those resources. I want to talk about some ways to think differently when you're looking for resources within automation, and I hope to give you a few points and tips on how to do that. First, a little bit about me. My name is Mike DeBoer. I've been in software testing in some capacity for 22 years. I've been in financial, banking, healthcare, firearms. I've been in just about every industry out there. I've been a QA contributor, a lead, a manager, a practice manager. I've even been a dev manager at one location. So I use all that experience to temper my thoughts and feelings and ideas that I have on resources. Currently, I'm at a company called EBM Software, who looks to optimize business data for companies to help them take a look in big data formats, their financials, how their point of sale data is doing, and help take them from what would take accountants weeks, if not months, to do. Now with the software, you can do this within minutes. But as far as automation and the automation resources, where are we today? We have a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles that happen. Some are being brought on by ourselves. Some are being brought on by different thoughts and concepts of ways to inject quality into the different products. One of the big things that's happening in a lot of companies out there, and I hear about this pretty often, is the leadership decide, well, quality is everybody's business. Everybody should do that. So the first step they do is they start looking at reducing QA in automation and manual, because the thought is, hey, developers are already writing code, and they do have these things called unit test cases. They're already automated. Let's just use those instead and start reducing that amount. And they say, who knows the software better than the business? We'll just have them test. These are struggles that we're having, but when companies take on this mindset, the mindset that quality is everybody's responsibility is good. However, when you make that your business strategy, it can lead to a lot of pitfalls. What generally happens within companies that take on this strategy is because everybody thinks everybody else is testing, nobody's testing. And if you ask someone, oh yeah, no, I'm testing, yeah, I tested that, not a big deal, we got this. Week or a month or so later, the bugs start rolling in from out in the field. And it's well, no, I tested. Nope, I'm good, it's their problem. And they start pointing fingers either way. This is not the business's fault, it's not the individual's fault. People at companies were hired for a specific role and skill set to do a job. That's where their passion is. That's what they're going to focus on. It's just the overall strategy that when you start taking a look at it, it can cause a lot of problems within companies. Another thing to take a look at is when on your automation team that can be a struggle and can focus the automation effort away from where it should be is how the teams are organized. Where do they report to? When you're talking about automation teams that are reporting through a development structure, those structures generally have their automation team focusing on the code and not so much on the UI and the end user experience and that end user workflow. It's what the development practice knows. Not their fault, it's just what they know. On the flip side, when they report to the business, QA teams that report to their business, their focus is on that UI end, and that's where they're at. There's generally, in those instances, less automation because things are dynamically changing all the time, and they want to be able to take advantage of those changes, so it ends up leaning more towards manual. Personal side note, I've always found it important to have an independent QA team with a truly independent automation team. That's not that we don't integrate. Well within the dev and the business, we collaborate. We have the manual testers. Their job is that sprint. Get that sprint tested. As soon as you start embedding automators into those sprint teams, every single sprint, there's going to get to the end where there's going to be a crunch and development is delivering something later in the sprint than they wanted. Guess what gets cut every single time? Automation. Now you've got automators who are manual testing. They're not happy. They're causing problems. It just gets into a nasty cycle in that. So by having an independent team, you kind of resolve around some of those issues. And then there's this automation versus SDET. They're both great roles. They're both valuable, but they have different mindsets. And to understand that, and this is my perspective, I've known a lot of people who call themselves automators. I know a lot of folks that call themselves SDETs. And pretty much to a person, these mindsets are pretty valid. I haven't found too many that deviate from these. With an SDET, when companies look to hire SDETs, they're almost looking for junior developers at that level. And they're going to be focused more on the code. And in my previous slide where I talked about that structure reporting through a development practice, they're going to generally be in that practice, in that area on those SDETs. Where automators are thinking about the whole product. They're thinking of it from a true QA perspective, from the beginning to the end. They're important. They're both important roles. But like I said, automators are looking at the whole application. They're looking for those workflows throughout the application. They're looking for those requirements. What is the end user response? They're looking black box, gray box, white box. They're looking at the full practice. Where, in general, SDETs are looking at the code. They're coming at it from a developer perspective. They're thinking of it in a code. They very rarely, if ever, journey to the UI level. The UI level is the most brittle level to write your automated scripts. Fact. But you need that level because that is the way that you test the user experience. And the moment we lose that user experience testing, we lose a valuable part of all of our testing efforts. And I like to think about it as there's the automation pyramid, where they talk about the different layers of automation, and you work your way up. At the pinnacle is the UI test, and that's where you need to have your fewest. But there's another concept that made popular by James Bach. If any of you know James Bach, he's got the round earth concept. And this is really the QA concept. We're looking at it where the developers are looking at it from the earth looking up through the layers of rock inside the earth. We're looking from the sky down at the earth. So a round earth concept, because ultimately, the QA role, we're the advocate for the client. We're the advocate for that user. And we can't lose that perspective, no matter if we're an automator or a manual tester. It's an important perspective ahead. So it's just two different perspectives. And so what I see is that SDETs have this developer perspective looking up, where the automators are looking down. Both incredibly valuable to have on your team, because the SDETs will generally have a technical skill level in a particular dev stack that's greater. Because honestly, of all the SDETs I've known, only one has said, no, I don't want to leave. I want to stay in automation. These SDETs in general see automation as a transitory step to becoming a developer. Just about to a person. That's fine. That's fine. Those are incredible resources to have on your team, incredible technical assets to have. And you need to have some of those on your team. But you just need to understand it's two different mindsets and understand the type of role you're looking for. If you're looking for a technical grinder, someone who's going to come in and just crank out a lot of code and a lot of scripts, an SDET's probably perfect for your role. But if you're looking at one who's got the passion and want to make it a career, I look for the automators, the ones who have QA as their goal. The other thing that's going on in testing is that there is a further specialization. There's further specializations going on. There's security, there's load performance, there's accessibility, and there's data testing. All of these, and this isn't a complete list, but these are the big specialties that are going on right now, the breakouts that are happening within automation and within testing. Security, you could argue with me, it's its own practice now. It really did blow out of QA testing, and right now there are some meaningful and valuable certifications that you can do for that companies do look for. It's pretty unique down in Kali Linux and the specific automation tools and the scripts that they run to be able to do their security testing. So, this specialization is now pulling some people away from automation going into that. You also have accessibility testing. I'm not seeing as much around accessibility testing, but I do believe in the next 5 to 10 years, accessibility testing as a specialization is really going to blow up. Any e-commerce site is considered a storefront by the ADA. So all of the lawsuits you have businesses having when they're not handicap accessible, these similar lawsuits are happening on websites that aren't up to compliance for visual, hearing, all these different disabilities. And the thing is, everyone at some point in their life is going to be disabled. And you're partially, if you have glasses, you're already technically disabled. You have any hearing problems, and so access to these sites. And there are some special tools, there's automations that go around. This area in automation is just gonna grow. There's load performance testing. This has been around for a while, but it is a natural blowout from automation. It's a natural step to take into that. Load performance testing is different. There's the load, what is it going to tip over a server, tip over a system, and how does it perform? But they're aligned. You need to understand, that's great. It's going to take 1 million hits per second to tip over that server, but if it's only going to take 5 to make your site unusable, does that million really matter? It's figuring out ways to combine both of those, and you get that through experience and exposure and working in that. This is a data and ETL testing. This is another really big one. As companies move to evaluate and digest big data, being able to work with data in large scales, and I was describing, you don't need to quite be a DBA, but to be a good data tester, you need to be really close to be able to do a good job. I was on a project that the data tester we brought in identified that the company had over 1 million rows of bad data, of misaligned data, in the base data that they wanted transformed into the new system. We were able to do that through equations. They were shocked and happy that we were able to do that. Now, you combine all of these different specializations, quality is everybody's business, and now you go into the automation technology. There are so many different technologies and approaches out there. While your company's software may not be truly unique, by the time you go through and build your framework with various combinations of these, all frameworks are built out of a combination of these, and this is not a complete list of everything that's out there. This is not a complete list. But when you start taking a look at that, and you start building it, suddenly your application may not be unique, but your framework is suddenly unique that you're doing. I haven't been in 2 companies that have the exact same automation framework. There's always combinations of tools. And it's understanding that and looking at all these different technology combinations. So, how do you build your team? You've got all of these struggles and strains going on. You have these different technology combinations going on. What's the one thing Just about everybody's doing well. Just about everybody's doing well. Many large companies have a vendor management system that when you put in a rec for a automation resource, oh, you're using this technology, this technology, this technology, this approach, it's this, and this, great. The problem is these tools will immediately kick out anyone who doesn't check every single box. So they're losing a lot of valuable folks who have incredible experience that they're losing because they don't know a specific technology. Mid to small size companies, they generally won't have an automated system, but their HR department and their recruiting departments think they're doing people a favor by doing the exact same thing manually. They're ruling out a lot of different folks just because they don't check every box, where you can't discount experience and exposure. You're losing a lot of talented resources. You may not even see them. You may not even be able to look at your best fit for your role because they've been crossed out. They've been ignored. Important thing, you can teach technology. All of those different technology combinations, you can teach. You can't teach fit. You can have someone who checks it, every box. Check every box. Technology-wise, they're a perfect fit for the team, but they come in and they don't have a personality that fits within the team. It's going to be a flame out not only for the company, but for the team. They're going to have problems. And so evaluating fit is critically important. Now, I'm not saying, and I'll never say, well, he just said you just got to hire nice people who fit in your team. They don't have to. No, there is some base technical skills that everybody needs to have, but those are the non-negotiables. The technology-wise, I'm never going to refer to that slide again. Because when I'm looking for folks, I'm looking for experience. I'm looking for exposure to a lot of different things within the automation world. Which brings me, what do you look for? You know, when I say that there's some minimum requirements, what do I go about looking for within the automation when I'm looking for automation resources? I'm evaluating what application. What is my application? Who am I serving with this application? Is it a web app? Is it a Win app? Is it API focused? Is it services? You know, what type of application is it? And I'm looking for folks on their resume that have exposure and have worked in those apps. That experience can be invaluable. They've gone through a lot of the pains. The dev stack, I'm a big proponent of aligning your dev stack for any automation solution with that of your development team. Suddenly, when you align your automation framework with that of your development team, you're no longer relying only on Google as your friend. You now have a whole team of folks you can go lean into when you have problems and you have issues. This also then aligns you more to the SDET roles. Now you're getting some more people interested in your company because you're aligning your automation framework with your development. Now there's more of a clear line of progression for those type of roles. It's hugely valuable. There's a project where the automation elements that I was automating, the actual identifiers, you'll need the identifier, usable identifiers, were buried 11 layers deep within the UI. I leaned over into the development team and the guy goes, oh yeah, hey, here's this little API I'll write for you. And he just tell him what I wanted on the screen and it sucked out the identifiers and helped me identify and just went through it automatically. That was by leaning into the development staff. And you can only do that if you align your automation framework. I've been at places where the dev stack has been Java and they do everything in Ruby. Okay, Google's your friend then. I think that can be incredibly important when you lean that in to your dev stack. And when you're looking for experience, you get somebody who's green. You know they don't have a lot of experience. They're not going to have that application, a lot of those application experience. In that case, you do need to kind of look at what languages do they know. Are you doing is it a .NET framework? Okay, if they're new, they're probably they're gonna need that .NET background or a Java background, depending on your application. But someone who's got 4 or 5 years experience, they may have worked exclusively in .NET, and you've got a Java opening. But they have some incredible experience in web apps and win apps in .NET. I'm gonna talk to that. I'm gonna talk to them. Because they've got that experience. And the difference between Java and C#, it's syntax. It's really someone who knows one really well can pick up the other really quickly. It's not that big of a leap. And I don't want to rule out any of those folks if they might be a good member of my team. This is getting less and less is what is your approach? If you're a waterfall shop and you bring someone who's primarily been agile and having to work, with the concept of it's got to get done today or tomorrow, it's got to get done quick, and all of a sudden you put them into, you've got a month, they might lose their mind. And the flip is opposite as well. If you take someone who's had months or weeks to do something, and now you're throwing them into an agile, it's just something something to consider. It's becoming less and less of an issue because more and more places everybody's pretty much agile now in their approach and their speed. And what's your team makeup? How does your team integrate with the rest of the organization? I will never hire someone who hasn't talked to every group, so a representative from every group that my QA team is going to interact with. They come in, they talk to the business, they talk to the DBAs, they talk to the developers, and I want to get a good feel in how they're going to interact, because that interaction is critical to their future development at my company. They're going to have to work well with others. If they can't work well with others and people don't want to work with them, it's just a matter of time before they either move on or we move on. Another thing, these are personality traits that I look for when I'm looking for people. I think they're incredibly valuable to have, not just for automators, but for manual testers as well. These are personality traits that I am specifically looking for in all of my people that I bring into any practice. Gotta be a diplomat. It is our job to deliver bad news a lot. And if you can't deliver that in a non-confrontational way, in a constructive criticism type way, you're going to get developers who start to shut down. You're going to get the business who's going to start to shut down and just, oh, here comes QA. If you already haven't seen it. So you've got to be a diplomat. You've got to figure out how to deliver that news in a way that they're going to be appreciative and like it. Skeptical. Just because the business says, hey, we want this feature. Why? Why do you want it? What business problem are you trying to solve? Oh, you're trying to solve that? Well, did you know over here in this part of the app, you can do this, this, and this, and it gets you that? Is that good enough? It is? Great. We can move on to something else. Or if it doesn't, okay, let's walk through. Is there anything close within the app that can give you that? Really start poking at the business for what they wanted and why they want it. What business problem are they trying to solve? The same goes for developers. Well, this is what I want. Well, does that align with what the business says? Well, how does this align? How does this? It can seem to be annoying, and you may get the developer to go, just let it go. You're driving quality into the application by those questions. Even though it may be considered annoying, it's in their head now when they're developing the code. So now those skepticisms, those questions are driving it into the quality. So even in that requirements phase, you're driving that quality in. And that's why I like to be skeptical. Don't compromise on quality, yet don't be obstinate. This is a very fine line with a lot of testers and a lot of automators. I don't have a complete set of manual tests. I don't have a 100% test case, so I can't automate it. No. Don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on what you can do and get that done and focus on that. You can still have some things within the application that you can't test for very good reasons. Line those out, but say, but I can work on this. And oh, by the way, I can get around this by doing this. You're going to get a lot more positive response from the people that you work for, and look for people that are looking for ways to keep working. You got to understand there's going to be a compromise. We don't have all the answers within QA. We're not going to know all the business decisions that are going in to the release. I use this example early on in my career. I thought, in companies that had go, no-go meetings, yep, QA needs to be present. We get a voice. No, we provide data. We are the data providers. We provide pass-fail. What did we cover? What is our overall coverage? Here's the data business. You know that you have a $10 million client on the line if we don't release by Friday. If they're okay with the quality of the data points we provide, no matter how crappy we think that going out in the current state is, they know more. We are data providers, and we let them make that decision on that one. Things from an end user's perspective. A lot of times we lose that within QA. We lose that and we start thinking, well, I know how this works. You've really got to always ground yourself with the end user perspective and how they actually use the tool. I love coming up with weird ways to use an application to identify issues, but I always have to temper that as, okay, is this, just because I can do this, is this something a customer is going to ever possibly do? Probably, but where is it on the risk? And then start balancing that out with that risk analysis scale. This goes without saying, and really applies to everything I've talked about so far, is great communication skills. You're communicating as a QA in automation and a manual as, to the developers. You're communicating to the business. You're communicating to other QA folks. You're communicating to the customer. And having great communication skills just broadens who I can have that QA person talk to. There are some QA folks who I needed on the team who they just love to grind on test cases. That was what they love to do. Don't have them talk to anybody, but just get them tested. Okay, I know that limitation. I know what they can and can't do, and that's what I focus them on. There's other people on the team that can do that communication, but you've got to understand that about your people, and your people need to understand the greater your communication skills, the greater your potential is within the company of moving. Open to suggestions. I do not have all the answers. Never claim to. I have ideas and concepts and strategies and where I like to go, and within a company and practices I like to put in place so that there is progression, there is ideas, but I know I don't have all the answers. And depending on what organization I'm in, I surround myself with smart people. I always try to look for people who know more than me in different areas so that I'm always challenged and have to reevaluate. Oh, maybe that wasn't such a good direction. Hey, if we modify it this way. But I've got to be open to listening to those ideas and don't think a differing idea is just a bad idea. No, you've got to look for people who are open to ideas and suggestions. Also, people who are good observers, not just about the application. In the application, understanding that to test certain things, you have to go through 12 different clicks to get down to this little thing here, where if you made this one little change, that's a feature enhancement. It's a pretty powerful feature enhancement. If you can change it from 12 to 4, that's going to be pretty powerful. But you also have to be observant of the people you work with. Everyone's communication style is different. And if you can get to a point where you can learn people's communication styles and go to communicate with them and give them the data that they want in the way that they want it, you're going to get people not only looking forward to talking to you, but coming to talk to you about, hey, this might be a problem. You know, I'm thinking about this. You're going to get people who are more engaged with you. I saw this at a company I was with a little while ago. The automation lead, the two automation leads on the project, they were data guys. You don't go to them without data. Don't go to them without specific data. That's just the way they work. Another person came to them and was very emotional and was like, I feel this is wrong. I think this is wrong, but didn't bring the data. It's not that she was wrong, and it's not that they were wrong. They just could not communicate with one another because they didn't understand each other's way of communicating. And when you have this observation and you're starting to learn different communications, you know, that's difficult because a lot of people, I work with a lot of, no, this is the way I communicate. People can get used to it. No, they won't. You're going to eventually work your way out, and that's what generally happens with people. It all comes down to a central point. You can teach technology, you're not going to teach fit. You need to have some baseline skills and experiences, but that needs to be what you spend a lot of your focus on in evaluating who you're bringing in to a company. I'm looking for people generally who have a passion for QA, who are truly, truly committed to QA. And those are the people that I want on my core team. Those are the folks that I'm looking for. I will bring in SDETs. I will bring in others in that. And I've always said the QA field in general is a great introductory phase for anyone within a company. While developers know a specific aspect, the business knows how the business uses their software. QA, we need to know it all. We need to have a general understanding of everything. So if they come into QA, they can then branch out into the business. They can branch out into development. They can go into these other areas, and it gives them a better perspective of whatever application you're working on. And wasn't sure if I was going to use it. You know, I think about committed. There's the joke of a chicken and a pig. They're going to open a breakfast restaurant. And they're going to offer bacon and eggs. Chicken's involved. The pig's committed. With that, thank you.